Hey everyone, welcome to Promethean Tides. I'm General, and I'm here with Breaker. Hello, Breaker.
Oh yeah.
And we also have someone else joining us, Synthetic. Hello, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. So, a couple of interesting news pieces came out this week. First of all, was a leak from the Supreme Court about how they are very likely to overturn Roe v. Wade. And as a result of this, I guess a lot of people are happy and a lot of people are upset and screaming fascism. Because, as we all know, when the federal government gives up its power and lets the states decide things, that's the definition of fascism. So, yeah, that's a thing. Uh, what are your thoughts about all this, Breaker?
I mean, honestly, like the degree of utter and total authoritarian fascism that we now live under, where whores cannot kill their babies anymore. I mean, I never thought the world would come to this. This is all the more reason for me to move to Canada.
Yeah, it's only in red states because the blue states will still be allowed to do it because it's now a states issue.
Well, if we can't all live together in a glorious globalistic hegemon where everyone agrees with us, I mean, what's the point of life? You might as well go to Canada, where, of course, as we know, everyone agrees on everything and no protests ever happen in Canada. That's what Trudeau told me.
That's like I was talking to a guy earlier this week, and he was telling everyone about how great the EU is, and how the larger the government and the more centralized it is, with the most number of people under it, the better that government is going to be. Because everyone knows that always works out.
I mean, of course, that's just a no-brainer. That guy would sound pretty smart.
And Synthetic, what is your general takeaway been from this?
My general takeaway is that I know absolutely nothing about this, right? I don't know when life begins. I think some scientists don't even know when life ends, but there I think is some pretty distinct characteristics that we can take from either one of them. Like for example, like when life begins, we know that this person could potentially have sentience. Um, and when life ends, this person no longer has any sentience, right? They can't move, they can't breathe, they can't think. And so I think that the decision of Roe v. Wade, from what I've read, it seems to be a very difficult thing to uphold, kind of like federally speaking. Um, and I also think that the decision that was made, I think a lot of people need to look more into it before they really start to make conclusions. I'm sorry, not conclusions, but like extreme conclusions, like oh, we're in a fascist state, or oh, we're in a communist state, or whatever. Like when any state decides to implement abortion laws that favor pro-choice.
Yeah, I think that there's we have to be able to figure out in order to come to any sort of agreement on this, we have to be able to kind of more or less figure out when it is that life begins, because you have a good portion of the country that believes life begins at conception. As soon as the sperm hits the egg, boom, it's a baby, it's alive. And then you have another part of the country that seems to think that uh, it's not alive until it actually exits the vaginal canal or the C-section. And maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Like, I would say, and it's been a while since I've actually like really looked into this, but uh, the after conception, a blastocyst is formed, and I think it's like a ball of 16 or 64 cells, and then at a certain point, it implants on the uterine wall. Now, most of the time, in actually the vast majority of just regular conception, pregnancy kind of things, there's something goes wrong and it fails to implant in the uterine wall. So the vast majority of actual conceptions do not end in the birth of a baby. However, once it's implanted, then its chances of becoming a baby shoots up much higher. So if I were to put a line there, I would say, well, maybe you could say it's once the blastocyst implants on the uterine wall, right? That would. I'm not saying that that's the most brilliant line. I'm just saying it seems like the fairest one. And I think that happens within, like, the first week. So technically speaking, you could still do a plan B, but any sort of, like, going in there with a vacuum cleaner thing would be out of the question. I don't know. That's just an idea.
Okay. And then, like, there's, like, 2 routes I could go with this. I could challenge your definition of life, or I can make, like, a argument of autonomy, and I'm not sure which one I can choose now, but,
Hey, whichever
I
one you
guess
want, man.
yeah, I guess we'll explore kind of like the definition of life in this case, and it seems that you're defining life to be um, that criteria when it meets the uterine wall within a week. And I ask, why such a line?
As I said, so this was I did the reason why I know about this is because I did a little project back in when I was in university, actually advocating for stem cell research, and maybe I'm not sure if I would have to think how much I still support it, because there's major benefits to it. You know what? I think I mostly still support it, even if it is a little bit Brave New Worldy. But the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of conceptions do not lead to a baby because the blastocyst fails to implant on the uterine wall. Now, that is not a philosophical line of where life begins and ends, or if something becomes a person or not. It's more of a practical line, and sometimes, just in dealing with real life, you don't really have enough room to be purely philosophical and ideological about things. You just kind of have to. You have to be a little bit practical with some issues sometimes, and that's not going to make everyone happy. But I don't know. I mean, from my perspective, that seems like the most fair place to draw the line from a political perspective.
Oh yeah. Also, I was gonna ask you this, but I previously forgot. What exactly like is a blastocyst?
So, sperm hits the egg. The cells start dividing, and then they basically form into this ball of cells, and I think it has like 64 cells in it or something. And that's it. It's just a ball of cells. Eventually, it becomes hollowed out, and then you get a blastocele, and then you have an invagination that becomes the anus, and then eventually it moves forward. It moves to the other end of the cell. That becomes the mouth, and then you have the earliest form of the digestive tract. You have the mesoderm, the endoderm, and the ectoderm. You have the 3 major tissue layers, and then it kind of starts to look like a real life form.
Okay. And so this all happens within what time span? Just to clarify.
Shoot. I'm not sure, because I didn't actually look this up in preparation, but if I remember correctly, it's like a week.
Okay, so all of these things form in a week. So, and what about the like, let's say the brain?
The brain actually develops from the ectoderm. Interesting bit here. Actually, your brain is derived from the same general type of tissue that your skin is, but the brain would develop after you have the differentiation of the 3 major tissue types. And so a blastocyst would not have this. A blastocele may kind of sort of have the beginnings of this. And again, if I remember correctly, it's the blastocyst that actually implants in the uterine wall. Once it's implanted, it then starts to become the blastocele. So there would be no tissue possible in a blastocyst that would create a brain.
When does the blastocele time frame occur?
After, I believe it's after the blastocyst has implanted in the uterine wall, then it starts to become a blastocele.
Yeah, like would that be like 2 weeks or a month or 2 months?
I think the blastocyst hits the uterine wall in about a week, and then I'm not sure how long it takes for it to become a blastocele. But it would happen pretty quickly. It's a fairly rapid process.
Okay, then I would say that my definition of my life, well, it would comport to being sentient, right? And so we know that our minds, they play a large part in being sentient. So I would say that my definition of life would be whenever the brain develops sentience. And if that's at the blastocele time frame or near the end of it, then that's when I would decide that a life has actually been created.
Well, let me ask you this then. Is a cockroach sentient?
Is a cockroach sentient? I don't know.
The neural architecture inside of a cockroach is going to be much more advanced than the neural architecture inside of a very, very, very early fetus, like just after the blastocele stage. It's probably going to be less advanced for a very small period of time. You're going to have a smaller neural architecture. So, is your argument that the sentience happens when you have a sufficient mass of sufficient neuronal mass, or like where does that come in?
It's very hard to draw the line between what is conscious and what isn't, and so I think that for practical reasons, we would have to draw the line somewhere, right? So I think that since you said that the cockroach is more advanced than the blastocele period, I would say that the cockroach is actually sentient, and the baby is probably, or the blastocele is actually less sentient than the cockroach. I think actually these things probably they exist in like a spectrum, perhaps.
Do you have issues with killing cockroaches?
No.
Okay, so I think that I have more of an issue with killing a tiny little speck of cells that is potentially a human than I do with a more complex combination of cells that is a cockroach. I think that the potential to become a human is an intrinsic part of this, and see, that's why you can't just say, okay, at this line, it's different. I think that the fact that it can become a human gives it, I guess, a different weight, at least in a lot of people's eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, it would probably behoove you to preface this by and qualify this by saying, like, we're talking about specifically human life, because when you just say life full stop, there's all types of things that are technically alive that don't have brains at all. So,
well, you know what? Jellyfish don't have brains, and I don't care if they die. Fuck those things.
well, there you go.
Okay,
But they are very much alive.
I guess my argument would be that we don't measure things, or people don't typically measure things on the potential of something to become like a human. Like, for example, like when you ejaculate semen that includes sperm, we don't necessarily hold that in the same regard as, like, let's say that period of time that we're talking about needed to create a life.
If you've ever watched, I think, The Meaning of Life by Monty Python, there's this song that they sing, and it's by a bunch of Catholics, and it goes, "Every sperm is sacred, every sperm is good."
I remember that, actually.
Yeah. No, but see, the sperm has no potential to create life unless it's also unless it hits an egg.
Um. Okay, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Then I guess I'll stop using that argument. The potential to create a human life. Then, so if we're so much just focused on the potential, why necessarily must we focus on that and not what it is right now?
Well, so for instance, if you ask most people, whose life would you save? Like it's like a trolley problem, right? On one side of the tracks, you have a 90-year-old man. On the other side of the tracks, you have a 5-year-old kid. Number one, who do you think most people would save? And number two, who would you save?
I wouldn't engage with it. I would let it just take its course. Like I simply wouldn't, do whatever it is that requires me to interact with that thing, because then I wouldn't be having agency over, choosing one life over the other.
A classic answer to the trolley problem, of course. But how about this? The trolley is in a quantum superposition, and it is unknown which person it will run over. But you have the ability to collapse the superposition. Do you collapse it in one particular way?
Well, what are the implications of doing that? Like, besides the,
that you could choose who lives and who dies. That would be the implication.
Yeah, I just wouldn't engage with it. No.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. I think that most people, if given the chance, okay,
they would probably choose the one who's the oldest, maybe.
I can actually I can set up the thought experiment a little bit better in order to not involve some of the ethical quandaries of the trolley problem. There's a burning building, and you're a firefighter, and you only have enough strength to carry one person out because there's a whole bunch of smoke, and you're not breathing well. And you can only save one person, and if if you don't save anyone, they're both going to die. So you ought save someone. Do you save the old person or the young kid?
Assuming that I had with me the potential ability to save both people, then I would attempt to save as many people as I could.
You don't. You can only save one. It's just
so I have this knowledge. I have this knowledge in mind, right?
Yeah, one of your arms is broken, so you can only save one person.
I would attempt to save two people. I'd fucking make them one of them grab onto my leg or something.
Okay. But then everybody dies.
Yeah, that's right. If you try to save both, everyone dies, including you.
Okay. Is there an option for me? Like, what is the time limit on this?
You can also just leave the building and let both of them die. That is also an option.
Like, what is the time frame of this? Because I think it's pretty important. Because
you have 30 seconds. Choose.
Okay. 30 seconds. Okay.
Get 'em.
I think in this situation, I think the way that you're wording this, like it's equivalent to the trolley problem, except that that now it's in a different situation. It's not different
equivalent
timing, right?
No, it's not equivalent because the trolley problem basically
it could be equivalent.
But it's not, because the trolley problem makes you choose someone to die, right? You are implicated in killing someone and saving someone else. Here, this situation is that both are in a dire situation. You are choosing to save someone. You are not choosing to kill someone. There actually is I guess.
Okay. I think I know what my answer would be now. I think my answer would be, you know what? Flip a coin, and then heads, I choose person one. Tails, I would choose person two.
Moral cowardice is astounding.
That's a very interesting answer. I think that practically speaking, I think most people would choose to save the child over the 90-year-old man.
Oh my gosh! Wait, what? Now there's age into this. Okay.
No, that was.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't hear that part. I'd probably choose the child. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, because that makes sense. I mean, 90-year-old man had his time on Earth. You save the child. The reason that you save the child is not. It's because there is more potential left in the child, right? It's to bring it back to what I was talking about. It's the potential matters, right? And so the potential in a child makes their life more valuable than someone who's 90 years old. It's the calculus of the situation. At least I believe. And what you also have to, I think, recognize is that there is potential in a fetus, and no, like it hasn't popped out yet, but there is a lot of potential there, and so I think that has to be recognized.
Okay. Well, we have to also, okay, again, I'm going to say this. We have to take a look at what it is as well, right? The child is already alive, right? But that moment in which they start, developing I forgot what it was called. It was like the moment after the Blastocele period, yeah. That within the Blastocele period, it's still developing its life, right? It's still developing what we call sentience.
Yep.
And so it technically still isn't a life, right? It still technically isn't a life at those beginning periods.
No, it is. It has its own separate, completely unique genome. I mean, unless it's part of a pair of identical twins. It has its own unique genome that has never been seen on Earth before, and it has the potential to develop into a full adult human. The question is not whether it is a life. The question is whether, I guess, it is a person. I don't think that there's any question whether it is a life.
Well, something being a person would imply like that they're alive. No.
Right. All people are alive, but not all lives are people.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yes.
So
I would agree with that. Yeah.
So Breaker, you and I were talking before the show, and I understand that you don't fall into either camp. You disagree with the pro-choice. You disagree with the pro-life because you're actually anti-choice and also anti-life. You want to just force people to have abortions. That's what we were talking about.
Yes, that seems stupendously accurate. But okay, in all honesty, the more I've thought about this over the years, and I end up getting to the position of the most important thing in this to me has more to do with the accountability of the woman. Now, let's say that because the definition of life, I mean, scientifically speaking, just speaking strictly scientifically, if you were to examine this process going on for all the way from sperm in the testicle to egg in the ovary, at no point during a scientific analysis could you ever say that these cells aren't human.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to draw a line between that.
Unless it's like ancient fossilized, just base carbon, and there's no DNA left whatsoever. Assuming you could figure out the DNA, you would know this is human cells. The entire way, even before conception, at conception, all through the process of the development of the fetus. No point can you ever say it's not human.
So let me push back on that a little bit because like in cellular biology, people work with cancer cell lines all the time, and like these are cell lines that come from people. And they've been immortalized so that you can basically just keep passaging them from petri cell to petri dish to petri dish to petri dish, and they just keep growing. And you can test them, and some of these cells maybe they came from you have the HeLa cells. I think that was originally cervical cancer tissue. There's ones that are breast cancer tissue, skin cancer tissue, all sorts of different cancer cell lines. Now those also have human DNA, but I don't have any sort of moral problem with just murdering millions of them for just biological testing, because
Well, I can qualify that very easily by saying that cancer cells, by definition, are a deviation from normal human cellular development. They're aberrant mutations. It's not something that is supposed to happen in a normal human life cycle.
True, but you're not going to say that. So, okay, your pinky finger is larger and has more cells in it than the child at a good amount of their development. They're for a good amount of the development. They have some complex structure to them, but they're still smaller than your pinky finger. You wouldn't give more, I guess, moral weight to your pinky finger than you would to the child just because there are more cells in your pinky finger, would you?
Because my pinky finger in isolation in and of itself doesn't represent a replication event. If I cut my pinky finger off, another human isn't going to grow from that.
Okay, all right. So it's not just the cells having DNA. That's not the only qualifier. It's the fact that they have the potential to also grow into a whole person.
Yeah, the potentiality for me does come into it. Like if you've got like a cancer, ovarian cancer, I'm not going to say it's like, okay, that has the same moral equivalent as a viable egg. That's an aberration. That's a mutation.
But the cancer's just trying to live, Breaker. Come on, give it a chance.
The cancer is trying to live, but in the way that it reproduces and lives can only lead to further and further deviation and unto death. It doesn't replicate into any viable life form without a host to parasitize off.
Technically speaking, there is transmissionable cancer, and it exists in the dog and the thing that lives in Australia, the
Tasmanian devil.
The Tasmanian devil. Yeah, that's a cancer that has actually been able to spread between members of the population. But side point, I understand what you're getting at.
I could go even further than that and say that there's genes that lead you to more likely develop schizophrenia later in life.
Okay.
But they still exist in environmental context inside of that human, and they reproduce in accordance and replicate in accordance with the human's growth and development. Now, if they reach the point where they cause schizophrenia to manifest in this human later in life, that would still be a type of deviation from the norm. But if you wanted to go like CRISPR and gene editing and get rid of cancer and schizophrenia dispositions, I mean, you know where that road leads.
Right. Okay. So I think that I got you a little bit off topic when into the cellular biology thing. Sorry. You were saying that this comes down to the woman. She has responsibility in this.
Yeah, because in the case of the developing fetus, like which sperm meets egg, like the whole thing through and through, the unique juncture of sperm meeting the egg and it's starting to develop into a baby, it now puts the woman in a position where she is directly responsible for this life form's gestation, and she alone could be the only person responsible for it as far as we know with current medical technology. Maybe that'll change in the future, but right now that is the case, and that has been the case for millions of years since sexual replication basically existed. In mammals, I mean placental mammals specifically, there's other instances where you have like amphibians and stuff, but we're trying to keep it to humans here, so yeah, let's stick with humans. So in this case, because the woman is responsible for the fetus in this way, now we could make all types of moral arguments, like the type of woman that would engage in an abortion for purely contraceptive motivations when there's all types of other options available. You could make those moral and ethical judgments about her character all day long. But the thing of it is, even if this is a morally bankrupt woman, the imposition of nature making her responsible for this at this particular juncture stands. So my compromise to the whole abortion thing is that, okay, If a woman doesn't want to go through with the pregnancy, she shouldn't have to. But remember when I said accountability on the woman? If at some future point, now, there would have to be all types of legal mechanisms for this specifically to where you couldn't backslide out of it with some type of other ancillary contracts. And if this were to become the norm, people would kind of be suspicious about you attempting to even do this. But if that woman is ever going to engage at some future point in anything resembling a meretricious relationship as recognized by the law, now if it's in the backwoods with the church and that's how they recognize the marriage in that community, this isn't going to apply to those types of people. But if they're going to enter into a legally binding meretricious relationship on paper, as far as the law is concerned, that particular medical record where she received that abortion should be accessible to the person she's entering into that legally binding contract with. Male or female, lesbian, gay, straight, doesn't freaking matter. And if it's a male entering into a relationship with a woman, the ultimate reason I say this, because if you're a man wanting to have children and you see in her records that she had an abortion for purely contraceptive reasons, and it just says because I felt like it or something like that, you might raise your eyebrow and think like, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with you knowing this now, that you have the potential to kill this child. I'm a religious man, so I don't think so. And then a progressive man might see that and say, you were a kid and you got drunk at a party. I don't care. Live and let live. I'm a liberal. Yeah, I'll marry you. And men can make that decision based on that information.
Breaker. You've told me this idea before, and I think that this is insane. So number one, I don't want the government keeping just vast records of people, especially if the government is going to say that something is legal, then they have no reason to keep records of people. The reason why it is that, let's say someone ends up on like the sexual predator list, or like the people who have murdered other people list, and that's publicly available information, is because you've done something that is very explicitly forbidden by the law, and so the law says, okay, now everyone can know that you did this thing. But if the government is going to come in and say, yes, abortions are legal, but also we're going to keep a record on you for doing something that we are saying is technically speaking okay, I think that that's insane. Also, in this thing that you're proposing, I mean, if a woman is raped, and then like her rapist, maybe he goes to trial and then he has to be on the sexual predator watch list for the rest of his life. But then because she aborts the baby that was the result of the rape, she also has to go on a list. I'm not sure if that. I think that's not a world that I would want to live in. I think that's.
Okay, here's the thing. If she has an abortion for that reason, if the rape was proven in a court of law, that she can then put a rider next to that and said, I got this abortion because it was a rape baby, that's going to be part of the record.
Why should she have to have her name be part of a public ledger to begin with? Like, people have the right to privacy. What you're saying is that if a woman gets raped and aborts it, then she has to basically post... She has to be an entity on the government ledger that says, this woman was raped and aborted her child. That seems just fucked. That seems fucked.
Okay, I think you misunderstood me. I didn't say it would be public to that degree where you could just Google it and find out if you knew this person's full legal name. It would have to be if you were going before the law, like the man and the woman were going before the law to enter into a legally binding meretricious relationship. All this would come out as like a preliminary before the law sided. Like the law would say, okay, here's this person's record, here's this other person's record. What do you think about this?
Okay, if this were to exist for the purposes of making all parties aware of things that they had done prior to the marriage, I mean, should we maybe have to register the number of sexual partners that we've had prior to the marriage, or any STDs that we contracted, including the ones that are treatable, like the bacterial ones, like chlamydia?
In the state of Michigan, you already have to.
Okay, see, this is to me, and maybe this is the libertarian side of me talking, and yeah, I know it is, but I don't want the government knowing that much about people. I don't.
The law will not recognize a marriage if one of the people in that marriage has an STD and they know about it.
Okay, then fuck Michigan.
Michigan.
And also I doubt that that's enforced. It's kind of like how in Virginia, technically speaking, sodomy is illegal, but that's not an enforced law. People do butt sex all the time.
Well, that kind of goes into like the rape statute now, to where if it's like forcible sodomy, it has like a more of a legal weight to it than there is debate whether or not that should be a thing. California recently, in a weird, fucked up California way, kind of got rid of that and said, okay, if you're gay teenagers and there's a rape, it's a worse crime than if you're straight teenagers and there's a rape. That shouldn't be a thing.
No. It should be, yeah, that should be equal. I guess, okay, here's my stance, right? I am not in favor of abortion being used as contraception, and I believe that is the majority use case of abortion. It is usually used as basically a form of contraceptive. The mother just doesn't fucking want it. In the much more rare circumstances of, let's say, rape, and I guess they also bring incest in there, I see no problem with abortion. It's up to the mother, because it was not a choice that she made. It was something that was forced upon her, and in that case, it's up to the mother to do whatever she wants. Abortion as a form of contraception, fucking evil. But in the case of rape, I don't know, man. I think it ought to be allowed.
Now, keep in mind, you brought up the right to privacy earlier. Now, the right of privacy in this particular context, when you're going to enter into a legally binding meretricious relationship, you've already given up your right to privacy because you want to have a intimate life with another human. So as far as that other human that you're having this intimate life is concerned with, you've already kind of consented to give up a bunch of private information to this person anyway. Up to and including their taking their dick or whatever else.
Well,
that's a very private area that you've consented to give to this person. If you're a woman and you're having vaginal sex, I mean, that's a very private thing that you've now consented to.
Well, right, but so I don't think that the government should have anything to do with keeping a ledger of all the naughty things that people have done. Like, I don't think that I should have to go to the government and tell them exactly how many sexual partners I've had. I don't think, I mean, it might be of interest to my future wife or whatever, but I don't think that the government has any right to know that, and I shouldn't have to update them whenever I have a one-night stand. I think that's crazy.
Well, as far as like the sexual partners and one-night stand stuff's like, that's not going to come into this unless you're having some type of sexual experiment as part of a medical experiment that all parties have consented to, that goes into some type of medical database about human sexuality or whatever. That could be in a medical record, but usually things like medical records are sealed for the most part, except for very certain circumstances, and I think entering into a meretricious relationship should be one of the circumstances where those records can be unsealed for the other party entering into this relationship to view.
No, okay, look, I have, there are women out there that have had hundreds of sexual partners, because it turns out that if you're like a 25-year-old woman and you have sex with a new guy every week, you can actually, over the course of a few years, easily get up into the few hundreds numbers, and, that's just a Friday night for you, and it's, that's how you live your life.
Now, me personally, I can't speak for all men.
Okay, hold on. So there are women that do that. Now, would I want to marry one of these women? Absolutely not. I think that,
there you go.
like, even if she never got any STDs from that and no abortions or whatever, it belays it signals a character in her that I do not want to marry. However, that doesn't mean that the government needs to come and tell me, oh, by the way, she had sex with 500 men. Not that I want to marry that woman. I'm just saying it's not up to the government to inform me how many men my wife has slept with. It's not the role of the government. Maybe it can be the role of you fucking stalking your Facebook profile or something. Maybe you can do that. Hell, maybe you can hire a private investigator. I have no idea, but it should not be up to the government to do that.
I kind of agree with you insofar as that goes, like with the sexual partners, like I said, but you have a problem here in that if you're going to go into a medical procedure like an abortion that is performed by a licensed physician, that their license is granted to them by the authority of the government, that's where the government can get involved. Now, if you're going to have a back alley abortion, or you're going to pay him under the table, he's not going to record it, that's already illegal.
So, does my spouse and the government therefore have the right to all of my medical records? Just because? I mean, this is one aspect of the medical records, but what about other things?
In the specific instance of us, I know where you're going with this, but in the specific instance of us talking about specifically abortion and making women accountable, like, let's say medical records where you have, like, I don't know, disabilities, STDs, viruses, all of these types of things. Now, with the COOF, since this is going on YouTube, the COOF, we'll call it. Yeah, I disagree with the vast, overwhelming majority of all the shit that they try and pull with that. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, that's a great example, right? So what if the government was like, hey, this general guy, he never got his Fauci ouchie, and so that's going to be public. And you know what? Anyone that he tries to marry in the future, they'll know that he didn't comply and he didn't get his Fauci ouchie. That's not up to the government to be able to tell anyone.
Well, insofar as like medications, like the type of medications you take and for what reason, I see where you could kind of open a door to some arguments like that. Like if you're taking medications that have a certain percentage chance to cause sterility or to cause birth defects, and you've ever taken any of these medications, I can somewhat even see that being unsealed if you're going to enter into a legally meretricious relationship.
If you were smart, then what you would do is before you get into the relationship, like before you get married, if you plan on having kids, before you get married, you both take a fertility test, and you make sure that her eggs work and that your sperm aren't retarded, and you figure that shit out before you enter into this legally binding contract. That would just make sense.
Yeah, you would hope that would make sense, but, you know, people lie. And this is all about accountability. So I want an extra, like a third-party form of accountability that's going to keep all people fucking honest. Now, people should be, well, coulda, shoulda, woulda don't mean shit. People should be honest about all kinds of things, but they're not.
I have no problem with a third party. I just don't want that third party to be the government. Okay? I would be okay with some sort of like an arbitrator. There are non-governmental arbitrators that can solve these sort of things. It seems like a really, really, really bad idea to put that sort of power into government hands. And if they're doing it in Michigan, I think that's fucked.
I think the assumption you're having is that the government is then going to use that type of information they have on people for some type of.
Of course they will. It's purpose. The government. That's all they do.
Yeah, I don't think the government should have the power to do that. And for the most part in the United States, constitutionally speaking, they don't have that power. But you see how all that goes to shit really fucking quick. I'm being kind of idealistic when I say this system. Like under the current horribly corrupt American government, would I want this to be a thing? Probably not.
Okay, so, I guess.
But idealistically speaking, like this is my personal best compromise for this. If the government actually functioned like it says on the paper and wasn't full of apparatchiks and backdoor deals and corruption every freaking which way. But I see your point in this, in that if there's a database of records such as this that the government could potentially use for some type of nefarious purpose.
Potentially, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah, it's a matter of fucking when, and eventually they are going to some way, somehow. The government has even intentionally infected people with. Remember the fucking Tuskegee Airmen? What was it? They gave them fucking syphilis, I think it was, on purpose.
Oh my God, you just made the same mistake that Joe Biden did. That's crazy.
Joe Biden, come on,
No,
man.
no, because it was the Tuskegee Airmen, and then it was the Tuskegee experiments, and they're very different people.
Yeah, but you know what I freaking meant. Come on.
Yeah, yeah,
man.
no, but that was
You
the
know the
exact
thing.
that was the exact mistake that Joe Biden made. You also have dementia, Breaker.
Come on, man. You know the thing.
I got hairy legs.
I got hairy legs, and the kids would come to me and rub my legs down the pool, and the head would stand up and turn blonde in the sun. That's how I learned about roaches. America.
So, all right. So we can move away from the moral and ethical debates around abortion, and I want to make this point. It might just be a standalone point because I think it's just one of those points that fucking makes sense, and it's tough to disagree with. But this is an insane situation that we find ourselves in, where in the Constitution it says that unless it isn't in the if it isn't explicitly
powers.
right, if it isn't part of the enumerated powers, then it's left up to the states. Now, abortion is one of these things that is not in the enumerated powers, which means that it should be left up to the states. It makes sense that this is not an issue for the federal government; it's a state issue. However, at the same time, so the left is actually anti-constitutional about this. They want a federal mandate saying abortion legal no matter what period. However, when it comes to the Second Amendment, which is the second one, which is enumerated, they want that to be a state issue. They don't want the federal government to say it has to be legal across the board. They want it so that in New York they can basically restrict your ability to own a gun to the point that maybe BB guns will be illegal. I don't know. In Maryland, it's functionally impossible for a law-abiding citizen to acquire a firearm. So they want the enumerated things to be state and the non-enumerated things to be federal. The perspective of the left here when it comes to abortion versus gun control and whether it should be federal versus state level, it is insanity, and it is precisely the opposite of what the Constitution actually lays out. That it is fucked, what they're saying.
Well, it is the left we're talking about, so that doesn't necessarily surprise me. Hypocrisy, yay. For the 1000th time, again. Who'd have thunk it? So, yeah, I can see your point on that.
Synthetic, do you agree or disagree?
I kind of have like my personal opinions on this, but I don't really think they're going to contribute to anything.
No, man. This is an open discussion. Fucking blabber
I mean,
away.
I guess like I kind of like when you think of the left or when you think of the right, people often like conjure up images of like certain figures or certain ideas or certain ways of thinking. And so, like, when you say that the left is hypocritical, like, I think that here in America, the left and the right are, and maybe even just in general, just like are very broadly diverse, right? Like the Republican Party, it ranges anywhere from like moderate to potentially somebody who maybe a white supremacist, going into like the position of Congress, right? And same with the left, right? You have a moderate to somebody who's potentially a socialist, right? Like Bernie Sanders.
Well, no, it gets much worse on the left. I mean, the much of the BLM movement is explicitly, I guess,
anti-capitalist.
Well, no, not just anti-capitalist, also ethno-nationalist, just not the white kind of ethno-nationalist.
Are you speaking of like the actual like organization, or are you speaking of like the movement, like the protest?
Oh, I've seen both the leaders and just people on the street from BLM say things that are quite racist, I would say. But I mean, well, you can't be racist against white people, so I mean, I guess they're not racist. But I mean, I would call it racist. Maybe I'm incorrect.
Well, insofar as the actual movement goes, I think you could probably find this on the archive of the BLM website, but they used to have on their website, which has since been taken down, I wonder why, an explicitly Marxian anti-family message, like anti-nuclear family
I think that we
explicitly.
kind of have to like make the distinction between these two things because there are genuinely people that are just like how in Blue Lives Matter, like not everybody who's in Blue Lives Matter is like a white supremacist Nazi or whatever, and not everybody who's in BLM is necessarily like a Marxist, communist, socialist, ethno-nationalist.
No, and I'm not calling the left all commies. A lot of them, yes, but I'm not saying that all people on the left are commies. But I think that what I
Oh,
can
no, that's not. I didn't attribute that to you.
right. But what I am saying is that I think if you were to encounter a random lefty, they would be they would want more gun control and they would want more free abortions. And if you encounter someone on the right, like just about every time, they're going to be more. They want more restrictions on abortions and less gun control. And I think that the thing is that maybe a couple decades ago there would have been more variability, but I think that at this point our nation, the United States, has become so polarized that it's kind of become, at least on like these hot button issues, it's kind of one way or another. There's not a lot of room for
Nuance, yeah.
yeah.
I do see that side, but I think that mostly like exists online. Like, I'll give you kind of like an anecdotal experience. Like, in real life, there are people who support the Roe v. Wade decision, and there are people who are against it. And I think that even the people who are against the Roe v. or I'm sorry, that they're for the Roe v. Wade decision acknowledge that it's hard to defend constitutionally, and they're okay with like leaving the states up to it, even though they agree with it. And like I just think that like and again, this is in my personal opinion. In my personal opinion, like I'd be more specific, like extreme leftists, like I would say it like I'd qualify it with that because I don't think like every single or like the majority of leftists believe that the government should necessarily like uphold it constitutionally. At least that's from what I've seen. Like
It's interesting that you said that's just on the internet because what I would say is that I believe that in the brave new world that we currently exist in, the vast majority of dialogue that exists is over the internet, especially political dialogue.
well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, these things can. Yeah, I'm not denying that they can like overlap or anything. I'm just saying that like it seems that like in these sectarian parts of the internet, like that just seems to be like what gets the most exposed, right? Like this vocal sectarian section of like either side, they just two that gets most exposed. And I'd rather not take like a black and white approach to this. Like that's just my personal opinion.
Understandable.
I mean, yeah, I understand that you need to have nuance. I get that, but I think that that sort of perspective, at least as far as I see it, is a little bit outdated. I think that we are in and now I'm gonna sound like a fucking Tim Pool for a second here, but I think that we're in the midst of a culture war, and I think that most people have picked a side. I think that there's like even when it comes to the moderates, I think that most of them have basically picked a side. I talk to people like online on Discord all the time, and what I'll notice is that for the most part, they're in one of the two camps. I mean, except for the fucking third positionalists that are for some reason saying that being a neo-Nazi is like the enlightened third position that's different than the Republicans and the Democrats. I strongly disagree with those people, but no, I mean for the most part, what I see is that it's kind of a two-sided affair. I mean, I'm not saying that's great. I just think that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's what tends to get more shown, kind of like online and probably part in course in real life as well.
Well, okay, that actually is a great transition to to Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, so we've been discussing Elon Musk and Twitter just about every single show since this whole thing started. I didn't really see anything big happen this week, but Breaker, you said that something came out of the news this week. Something about how some deep dark secrets about Twitter have been found out.
Basically, I think it's starting to come out that Twitter did have the frickin' shadow banning algorithms and were suppressing follower counts of certain accounts. Like, shocking, I know. Usually prevalent figures who didn't entirely, if at all, comport with the general ideological biases of Twitter itself. Which they kind of said in court when testifying that they totally weren't doing that. So,
Well, I mean, look, Breaker, if they said in court they weren't doing it, then they weren't doing it. Come on, what would they do? Lie to Congress? They're not going to do that.
well, as we've talked about before, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if they did, not to the point that anyone's going to be held accountable for doing that. I don't know, but usually, like, considering all the vast array of big money interests that were all invested in Twitter, like Saudi princes and certain like literal oligarchs, not just the Russian kind, around the world that were all invested in Twitter and had financial stakes in it. Oh, there's a name for that. What would that be? Oh yeah, fascism.
No, Breaker. That is the beauty of globalism and also neoliberalism. Okay, it's global neoliberalism. We have a new term. It sounds much nicer than fascism. Use the new term, please.
Yeah, famous, well-known liberal, the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
Well, okay, so actually, it turns out that I think that the Saudi prince, he actually is now behind Elon Musk in buying Twitter. He's actually put his money in supporting Elon Musk in this endeavor. Why the turnaround? I don't understand.
Well, because Elon said, hey, I'm going to return your investment with extra on top of it. So you can either bitch and moan or you can take the freaking deal. What are you going to do? And the prince is like, I guess I got to take the deal.
Yeah, so there's been a bit of talk recently, and it's something that I continue to think about, right? So Elon Musk, he says a whole bunch of based stuff. Like, it's very based. But also, like, I imagine that if I was on the left and Disney comes out and they say, I want to make a 1/4 of all people in all Disney movies going forward some sort of LGBTQIAA plus representation, if I was a lefty, I would be super happy about that, right? I would be like, oh, that's so woke. Yeah, I love it. So, obviously, at least I think that Disney is probably doing that for just purely financial reasons. And, it's been said that maybe Elon Musk is doing so for I guess similar reasons, but on the flip side. He says a whole bunch of, based and red pilled things, but, maybe he's just doing this just for the money. He's just trying to make smart business decisions. Either that or, and this is actually what I'm more inclined to believe, I think that he might just be a pretty cool guy. I think that he's a businessman, and he has to be savvy, and he has supported China in the past. He said things there in support of China. He is willing, I guess, to team up with the Saudi prince in order to secure Twitter. But I think that if you're in the world that Elon Musk is in, you can't just be purely ideological. You can't always just say, no, I support America. Like, I think that you have to give and take a little bit with the system in order to get what you want. And I think that if you look at what he's actually been doing, like trying to get man to Mars, and saying that we shouldn't have all of our eggs in one basket that is the Earth, I see that as just an inherently pro-human thing. And even outside of any left or right politics, I have to support him for that one,
Mm. I think I could see your point on that one.
I think that in all of life, you must not be like too ideologic. You have to be subject to change. You have to be subject to differing perspectives and opinions and positions, and kind of like meet people where they're at. That's just my opinion, though.
I wonder if all the lefties are going to start leaving Twitter in droves, and I don't
No,
know.
they're not
Go
gonna
to
leave Twitter. They're
Mastodon.
gonna fucking stay where they are, and they're just.
Well, they're going to stay at Twitter, but then a bunch of right-wing people, like I'm not talking like full blast neo-Nazi type right-wing people. I'm talking about like just like regular right-wing people are going to start arguing with them, and they're either going to get a bunch of block bots like they always did and turn into bubble blowing bitch babies like the famous Steve Shives. Steve Shives.
I mean,
No.
these sides already barely like argue with each other online. Like everybody mostly just stays within like their own space.
There's a reason for that, though. This is what happens. There's a space that has both left and right people on it. The right tries to talk to the left. The left tries to ban the right. If the left can ban the right, then the left has the bubble and they win. If they can't ban the right, then the right keeps talking to them and then they just leave. They're like, I don't want to be part of this place where I have to talk to the right. So, like in all instances, I think that the right is completely happy to talk to the left. I love talking to the left. What I've noticed is that, and I guess this is in general. Okay, it's not in every single instance, but in many circumstances that I've encountered, it is the left does not want to engage with the right, and the right really wants to engage with the left. It's almost like the right is like a dog, and the left is like a cat. And the dog is like, play with me. And the cat is like, leave me alone. I'm going to scratch you.
Usually when the left tries to argue, unless it's someone like... You have to get like a pretty intelligent left-wing person to even start having that argument. And I mean, I don't notice a lot of them. Maybe Noam Chomsky or Slavoj Žižek or someone like that is at the level where they can actually...
Norm Chomsky. It's Norm Macdonald's and Noam Chomsky.
Yes, Chomsky, the famous garden gnome from the movie Romeo and Juliet.
Exactly. Yes, it's Noam Chomsky. I named my first cat after him, actually.
Noam Chomsky, and like... I fucking have that problem. Noam Chomsky and Slavoj Žižek and maybe someone like Bill Maher. It's like, it has to be some type of like actual intellectual powerhouse to make me even think that they're trying to have something resembling an argument before I take left-wing discourse seriously. Because left-wing discourse is so permitted to occur. Now, there are some royal dumbasses on the right, too, that will just have grug brain takes on shit. But you don't get to see them as often because they usually, the most pernicious of them, get cloistered away on Gab. Go to Gab and see how many stupid takes about Zijuden you can find in 2 seconds. It won't take that long.
No, see, actually, this is the thing that these social media sites inadvertently did. Like, this is the problem with top-down control. So, like, let's say YouTube comes in and they go, okay, we need to ban these like right-leaning people. We disagree with their opinions. We need to get rid of them. We won't have any of these like spicy right-wing takes. We will, however, allow spicy left-wing takes. That's totally fine. You can preach about communism and fucking black ethno-state. That's fine. Just no spicy right-wing opinions. So
but then you have someone like Vaush or Vosh or whatever the fuck you want to call him that like, and
so he'll
like argue for hours and make you think that he's making perfect sense with this like smug, confident demeanor, when most of the shit out of his mouth is just grug, dumb shit that he's literally just reading off Google as he speaks. And sometimes his fucking audience will just like DM him and say, even in the chat, hey, Vosh, what about this point? And he'll just read a fucking random Twitch chatters like, yeah, that is a good point. But he won't say it like this. Like, oh, I think, let me scroll through the chat. I think this.
Well, right. So like the original aim, I think, of the moderation was that they didn't like the spicy right-wing takes. They were more okay with the spicy left-wing takes. They didn't like the spicy right-wing takes, so they wanted to get rid of them. However, what has happened is that it purged all of the dumbasses from the right side, but it maintained all of the dumbasses in the left side. And so actually what that's done is it's made the right talking points on like YouTube much more refined, much more palatable, much more professional, whereas the left-wing takes continue to just slide into chaos and degeneracy. So
yeah, because you see them more often, and with the Pareto distribution, the 80-20 rule, like 80% of all people's takes, left or right, are going to be somewhat moderately coherent, but mostly grug brain shit. And the top 20% are going to be like Mencius Mobug versus the Noam Chomsky level shit.
Right, yeah. So the inadvertent thing, like Twitter originally just wanted to get rid of right-wing shit that they didn't like, and YouTube wanted to do the same. But inadvertently, because the system is complex, and when you do a top-down law into a complex system, it will never result in what you intended. What you've done is you actually made the right more refined and actually better to articulate their argument, because they have to know exactly what they can and can't say. They have to know how to dodge around certain things, and it's made them more refined. It's made them smarter about public dialogue, and I think that all they've done is actually strengthen the right position by just flagrantly banning them. I think inadvertently they actually made the right stronger. And that was not their intention.
Well, I'm half glad they got rid of so many stupid people, but then they left a whole bunch of other stupid people that are like, oh.
Everything in Twitter discourse is so black and white. I hate it.
Oh God.
Like you support the hungry fucking what is it the sickle, you support the hungry sickle, or you support the genociding fucking windmill.
I mean, Elon Musk is kind of echoing some points like, okay, the only and Elon Musk has said the only restrictions that he wants are like the legal restrictions on speech, like you can't threaten to burn down someone's house or something, or threaten to kill somebody. Like, legally protected speech should just be allowed on Twitter, like, wholesale. That would technically include the grug brain righties. It's the Judens that are all the problems. I would love to see the Twitterati have to deal with, like, we need, like, anti-Nazi block bots quick, and they would just get all the freaking block bots souped up. It's like, oh, thank God Nazis are attacking me. But the left wouldn't stop at that. They would be like, oh, look at all these freaking Nazis everywhere now. Elon Musk make a meme of him wearing a German pit helmet or put him on a Hitler mustache doing a Heil Hitler sign. Like, Elon Musk is responsible for this.
Well,
the right is just going to be like, I don't believe in Nazism, but, and they're going to take that but as, wow, that means you secretly do believe in Nazism.
Well, I mean, look, man, Elon Musk came on and he said that he wanted to just allow blatant free speech on Twitter. Do you know what could happen, man? Someone could be trans and they could get made fun of. Okay, that is fascism.
I mean, block buttons exist. There's no such thing as cyberbullying. In the famous immortal words of Tyler, the Creator, there's no such thing as cyberbullying. Motherfucker, close your eyes.
Just turn off your computer, right?
Yeah, like if you're getting bullied, what is the goal? Like for the person getting bullied is for the bully to stop bullying them. So what the person getting bullied, we'll call them the bullyee, or no, I'm just kidding. Just the bullied person could do is just, like, online, just exactly, just block them, right? Because in reality, like, most of these people, they'd want to, like, possibly, like, game end them, or they want to, like, just take them out of their area. So, like, you can literally do that just online, like, so easily. You don't have to do a bunch of complicated shit as you would in real life.
you can even block words on Twitter. You can have like a list of blocked words. So if you don't want to be called any derogatory slurs for whatever you might be or identify as, you could just put those words in, and any tweet with those words, regardless whether you're blocking the account or not that's saying it, just those tweets won't show up if it has one of those words in it.
Yeah, or if like you're following someone and they're giving like a garbage take, or like you don't want to hear, them anymore, you can just mute that account. Or
You
even
can
if you're
mute
not
that
following them, you
specific
can still
thread.
mute the account.
Yeah, if there's a thread from a person you're following, but it's like a garbage take with a bunch of garbage responses, you can just mute that thread and continue to follow the person.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I don't want to see this again. I think there's like an actual option for that.
Yeah. It's almost
so
as
many
though there's already
tools.
options to deal with this, but everyone just wants... I
I
think
think the
because the left wants to live under eternal mommy nanny state, so they kind of want Twitter to act as their de facto parent and kind of do it for them because they don't want it to have anything remotely resembling personal responsibility and accountability.
Oh my dude, and oh my gosh, something that happened recently was like I was following a person right on Twitter. Hold on, wait, sorry. I was following a person on Twitter, and they posted a literal fucking suicide note, right? And like,
I
we're not
think you
even
mean
put this.
self.
Right?
I
They
think
posted an
you
actual
mean.
suicide note. What?
Wait a minute. I think you mean self-deletion note. Remember, this is going on YouTube.
Oh yeah, they they put a self-deletion note right on their Twitter account, basically detailing how they were going to Roblox themselves, and then posted the exact items in which they were gonna Roblox themselves, right? And then like they prolonged this for like a series of days, like I think it was like 2 or 3 days, right? And like everyone was like, no, don't kill yourself, no, 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 no. Started giving a bunch of like likes and retweets, and like, yo, someone help this person, right? They started like signal boosting it, right? And like it's just like at the end, right? They didn't end up killing themselves because the item they used didn't have enough resources, let's just say. And they ended up just crashing themselves into like a tree or something.
Oh, like they took 12 baby aspirin, but really they should have taken like 20 baby aspirin.
No, I'm talking about like they got an apparatus which exerts a deletion mechanism, and they didn't have any. They tried to do that to themselves, and they didn't have any. Fuck, I don't know why I can't say that. They just had whatever. Okay.
What was the object involved? I'm curious.
A gun.
Oh, they didn't have any bullets. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to pull the trigger, and there were just no bullets, and they're just like they started panicking, and they just drove themselves into a tree, and then they ended up in a hospital.
Okay, interesting thing. In order for a gun to work, you actually do need bullets. That's
Yeah,
you learned it here first, folks.
Yeah, they apparently they didn't check. It wasn't even their gun, by the way. It was like their mom's gun or something. And I actually suspect that it's actually intentionally made to be that way, so that like anyone who poses a threat near them, they just pull up a gun, and mostly people will bend to their will. Like, and this was in a car, by the way. Like that gun was in the car.
So I think that if you go on Twitter and you start threatening suicide and you post a suicide note,
Yeah, you should just get banned.
No, I mean maybe.
I think
Sure.
that is
I
so
think
toxic.
it's a cry for attention.
The engagement you get with those types of tweets are like so toxic, and it further like encourages this behavior, and like it's just like it's so fucking toxic. Like the people liking and like the people retweeting and like all of like the support notes, and it's just like it sets like such a bad precedent for like people like just observing this behavior, that like, oh, if I threaten suicide, I'm gonna get all this attention and all these likes and shit. Like,
Self-deletion!
oh yeah, that if
Am
you
I the only
that if
person with YouTube motor skills?
fuck, I'm sorry, I'm like playing a game at the same time. Okay, that if you that if you threaten to self-delete yourself on Twitter, then you're just gonna get like all this like attention and likes and retweets and like and encouragement not to do it, and like support and help. It's just like, and on one hand, like if the person is willing to receive help, that's good, and on the other hand, like it's also a bad
Wait
thing.
a minute. Wait a minute. There's already a website specifically for that purpose. It's called the okay, for the purpose of education. The name of the website is the Suicide
Nobody's
Prevention
gonna
Hotline.
go to that. Nobody's gonna go to that. I'm sorry.
Well, if you actually want okay, people actually wanting help in those regards when they have those types of feelings and intentions. There's already exist online resources with chats with qualified professionals that deal with this type of thing and counselors that you could actually talk to that aren't random accounts like Ass Blaster 123 that's just gonna say "Do it, queer."
And Fo20 plays at 69.
No, what I'm talking about is just like the just like one comment that gives them a modicum of like, wanting to be helped.
So this is the thing, right? And so obviously the suicide hotline. If you are feeling like you're in a bad place, you should probably give them a call. But the thing about Twitter and actually a lot of these social media things is that it's a dopamine hit when you get likes and retweets, and people, I believe, they get addicted to it, and I believe that at least in some part this is why you have such prevalence of transsexuality in our modern day world. I believe that it's promoted by the algorithm. It's promoted by the people that use the site. You get a whole bunch of likes and retweets for being just a little bit different, and I think that it pushes people in certain ways that they wouldn't otherwise go, because it's that dopamine hit that they want. They're addicted to it, and I think it drives people crazy, and I think that we're seeing exactly that. I was talking to a guy the other night, and he was saying, like, dude, like, would you jump off a cliff just because, Twitter told you to? And I said, no, I would not jump off a cliff unless I got enough retweets. And he, he laughed at that because it was a joke, but there's a certain truth to it. That people, I think they're willing to do crazy shit just because it gets them a modicum of interest online.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent they do that, right? But I don't think it's as common for people to transition just because they get a bunch of likes and retweets. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that's probably not the majority of the reason why people transition.
I think that
that's a very small percentage.
I think that it affects women more than men. So I think that there's been almost like an epidemic of high school girls wanting to transition to being boys, and some people were doing some research on it, and it had a lot to do with their friend group and their friends online. So their social network and who they were hanging out with in their school was a major determining factor. So it wasn't like it was a personal or endocrinological or biological decision. It was social influence, and I think that a lot of this comes down to social influence. And now I'm sounding like a lefty because I'm like, oh, it's the society that's causing all the problems. But I mean, no,
we live in a society.
We do live in a society, and I think that a lot of this is social media influence. I don't know how to get around that one.
I don't think it. Well, for the thing that you said that there was a study done, right? Can I say that just out of curiosity? I just if it's convincing, and if it has good reasoning, I'll believe it. You know what I mean?
I will tell you what. I can after this, I can look up precisely the study.
Because I'm not going to claim that I know anything about that specific topic.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fucking take 5 minutes out right now and look it up. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just do it after. I'm not denying that could be the case. Because I understand that women going through puberty, all puberty, it fucking sucks, but especially for women because you're getting boobs and an ass, and then you have other men commenting on it, and you feel this kind of resentment, and it's fucking more confusing. It'll just create you're gonna mistake wanting to be something because in spite of what other people are doing. So I'm gonna transition, and then once I do that, I won't have to deal with all these difficult things.
And periods.
Okay, so I actually, it was the first link that came up on Google. I'm not going to be fucked trying to find the actual scientific article. So here's the New York Post article that describes the original article. I can. I sent it to you. I sent it in the chat here. I can actually link the proper scientific article in the video when I post this. But yeah, I mean, just for your own information, synthetic.
Yeah,
There it is.
I'll read up on it.
Yay. Well, that kind of segued into a bunch of different topics, but they were kind of tangentially related to Twitter and Twitter drama, so.
Well, I think it transitioned perfectly into the fact that apparently Dave Chappelle was attacked this week. I don't know anything else about that, but it was a thing.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, he claimed to have been attacked by a trans woman, but I don't know. I think he was making a joke. All I know is that Jamie Foxx beat the living fuck out of that person, and it looked like their arm had been taken off and put on backwards when he was done with them. So.
Yeah, that was a severely broken arm. I saw the image.
Yeah. Well, Jamie Foxx and the security team together, world famous comedian gets attacked while performing, there's going to be repercussions that are going to be very physical and very immediate. So you probably shouldn't do that. Just so you know, do not attack stage performers ever.
Everyone should always attack stage performers whenever they see them at all times.
We do not advocate violence on the public space.
I 100% advocate for any kind of violence done on anyone, on anything.
Motherfucker, this is going on YouTube. Do you understand?
Yeah, no, I think that everyone should just attack each other whenever they see each other. Just there should be no in real life physical contact.
I know you're fucking.
Other than violence.
No. Okay, hold on. This is like anarcho-primitivism, and I'm like kind of 1 foot in favor of this camp.
But wait a minute, humans in a natural environment don't just constantly attack each other. That's not
they
technically.
Should.
No, they attack people that are not in their tribe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if they're with you, even if like they're like your own people that you trust, and like other people that you also are friends with, or like you should just always attack them.
Just be the violent island. Have no interaction with anyone except for violence. Yes.
Yes, everyone should follow that.
I believe that this is
just everyone for themselves.
This is what Aristotle described as living a good life. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah, because it gives you that thrill. It gives you that motivation to like defend yourself and everything.
That's almost that's like almost pseudo-Nietzschean. I love it.
Well, this is more like a Julius Evola take if you read his book, Handbook for Right-Wing Youth. He kind of does advocate for, like, dueling, like, bring back dueling among teenagers.
There's just everyone. Just, like there's not supposed to be kind of, like, any other interaction besides violence.
Hey, there's also a book by Shad M. Brooks called Shadow of the Conqueror. You can check it out on Amazon. I was not paid to say this, but it is a book. And he has this fantasy world where like open dueling is allowed and everyone carries a sword. But if you get into a duel with the wrong person, they're probably going to kill you.
As long
everyone has a sword.
As long as we're promoting things, a couple weeks back, I watched this movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I was also not paid to say this, but holy shit, that movie was just amazing. Probably, like, if I were to rank my top 3 favorite movies, it would now be number 1, obviously, Fight Club. Number 2, Everything Everywhere All at Once. And then number 3, Waking Life. That was a fantastic movie. Everyone should go and see it. Just absolutely fucking brilliant. I won't do any spoilers for it. I'm just saying, fucking see the movie, sit down with zero expectations, and just maybe read up a little bit on nihilism and existentialism before you go see it. But fucking just absolutely brilliant. So, yep.
I wonder if Siphon saw it or Synthetic. Did you see it?
My friend saw it, but I didn't have the opportunity to see it yet.
I never got to see it either, unfortunately. Everyone loves that movie.
There's always a chance.
I probably should see it this time, but I think I'm going to watch some other stuff with a friend of mine, so Oh, that's not really germane to this conversation, but anyway. Okay. Twitter drama. Elon Musk. Dave Chappelle got attacked on stage.
And
Don't attack.
finally, the U.S. appears to have aided the Ukraine in the sinking of a Russian flagship in, I believe, the Black Sea. Or the Mediterranean Sea. I think it might be the Mediterranean Sea. I don't know. I'm not. I don't live in Europe. I don't know. I'm an American. I don't know geography. Okay.
What are the sources of this? Is this like confirmed by things that are not propaganda outlets?
Like I said, it appears as though the United States aided the Ukraine in the sinking of a Russian flagship. I don't know if there's that much more to say about it. It's just, even though the news of Ukraine has kind of died down a bit, I think that it is escalating, and as I have said previously, I believe that Russia's strategy here is that this is not explicitly a war to just take over Ukraine and just, that's it. They just want Ukraine. I think that it's a siege war against the West. They are limiting our supply of wheat, our supply of fertilizer, our supply of oil. These are things that we really need to have a functional economy, and I think that Russia is doing a siege war against those key pillars of our economy, and I think that it's actually proving to be somewhat effective. I think that this is the long-term strategy of Putin when it comes to this war, and I think that it's actually being relatively intelligently fought. Just keep up the bullshit in Ukraine. There you go. And I think that there is a non-zero probability that this does end up resulting in World War III. And by the way, I think that there are most likely types of weapons that exist that are more powerful than nuclear weapons. And when I say more powerful, I don't mean explosive yield. I mean in terms of their ability to wage war. And I think that if we do enter World War III, that's what we're going to end up stepping into.
We can't just say nukes.
Nuke.
Well, okay, so so when was the last time that a nuke was used in military in war? When was the last time a nuke was used for war purposes?
No clue. I can only guess.
1945, I think, with Japan.
It would be 1945, yeah. So
Yeah.
It's been just about 80 years since we dropped that stuff. I believe that the weapons that we have developed since then are probably different and more powerful than the nuke. Here would be an example of a weapon that is more powerful than a nuke. Let's say, in theory, that China wanted to start a World War III with America. And their very, very, very first step before any gunshots were fired was to, let's say, purchase the Democratic Party. That would be an act of war, and it would potentially be a more powerful act of war than nuking D.C. Because if they just nuked D.C., then the entirety of the American public would be against China and would want to murder them back. But if China just discreetly buys up the Democratic Party, then that is actually more powerful in terms of winning a war than dropping a nuke on D.C. is. I think that's just a fact.
I'm not saying that they should use nuke. I'm just saying that the way that you were describing these weapons, it seemed like a nuke to me.
No, I just described an example of something that's more powerful than a nuke, but does not have nearly the explosive yield. It actually has zero explosive yield.
Yeah, no. I'm just talking about when you said, and I think that they're going to deploy really high, powerful, explosive weaponry, and for me, that seemed kind of like a euphemism for nuke.
I don't think I ever said high-powered explosive weaponry, but very powerful weapons, yes. I never said high explosive.
Okay, I misread it then. Oh well.
Well, you misheard it because
Oh, yeah,
I don't think
misheard
you
it.
read anything that I said. Yeah, so I wanted to say that. I think that the kind of shit that that World War III. So I've said this before, right? I think that the 19th century was the century of chemistry, and the 19th century was the century of physics. The 20th century was the century of chemistry, and the 21st century. No, I still got it wrong. Fuck.
Fuck.
The modern day, the 21st century is the century of psychology. Okay, let me just say that. I think that right. So 21st century of psychology, 20th century of biology, and 19th century was the century of chemistry. We are in the century of psychology. I think that all of these big tech platforms, the way that they make money is by trying to figure out exactly how it is that people think. They actually hire psychologists that study gambling in order to be consultants for them so they can get more eyeballs on their stuff. This is the century where everyone is trying to figure out how to shift people's attention from one thing to the other because they've realized that that's really how you gain power. And I think that that is actually the war that kind of exists right now. It's a war of getting more people to pay attention to a particular thing. It's really important, and this sort of thinking about war doesn't seem as destructive as actually just launching nukes, but actually it's full on Fahrenheit 1980, Brave New Fahrenheit 1984 for Vendetta. It's the most dystopian.
Yay. Maybe not so yay. Synthetic, what do you have to think about this?
This entire conversation just makes me realize how much I like. I don't know, dude. I think that pretty much we have found more discreet ways of exerting power, and violence is probably the absolute last resort. But it ultimately does come to that. I think that like a lot of the systems we have in place now are probably the potential to cause violence, right? And how to increase that potential, right, within different countries. So, for example, China buying up the Democratic Party. Let's say the United States government figures this out, and it's like, oh shit, we just got bought out by China. And then if the people have been so far subverted, then they're gonna disagree with the American government, and they're gonna potentially unleash violence. That's increasing the potential for violence against the American government in favor for the Chinese government, like in this hypothetical, yeah.
Damn. Looks like we're all boned. Like there's no good way out of this.
What quote is that from?
Futurama, Bender the robot. Well, we're boned.
Yeah, in that scenario, we would be boned.
Well, on that happy note, so I guess that I did have some things to say about like biology or whatever, but you know we could bring that up next time. I think that very depressing end note is a satisfactory place to leave this, unless you guys wanted to say anything else.
I mean, a hypothetical is a depressing note. I mean, are you saying that this is actually something that could happen, like a high likelihood of happening?
Like is a World War III something that could happen?
No, I mean like China literally buying the Democratic Party.
Oh no! I think that's something that's already happened.
Done that.
Yeah, dude, that already happened.
Did that.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Why do you think they call him Beijing Biden?
I mean, I'd like to know how and like why or I probably already know the why, but like the how.
Well, I think
just if that could be detailed to me, please. What the fuck? What have I missed out on during these past years when I haven't been paying attention to politics? What the fuck?
Well, I mean,
A lot.
imagine the following. Let's say that, I mean, and by the way, America does this as well. Like 100%. We have gone into nations and just put in place new leaders, and we've spurred coups to happen. Actually, America has a whole history of doing this. It's not foreign for this sort of thing to happen. America's been doing this for like more than 100 years, probably like the last 200 years, especially with their campaigns in South America. So like this is a known quantity. And what happens when China, with its gargantuan amount of not just GDP, but their single-handed ability to shift that GDP, what happens when China says, hey, I want to start buying out American politicians, kind of like how America bought out politicians and created banana republics? Well, you know what? It's definitely something that could happen, and I suspect that it is something that has happened.
I do know that China has like instilled some sort of corruption in New Zealand. I think that probably like a New Zealand politician, or I forget if it was Australia. It was either Australia or New Zealand, where this guy got charged with corruption. I think because he accepted like a bribe from like a Chinese person or somebody who represents the Chinese government.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I know that is actually like an actual fact that actually happened. I just don't know if that's happening in the United States.
Probably be a bit more complicated in America, but not impossible.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know, haven't seen anything regarding that. I know that
here's like
China does
really
espionage here, like a lot of it.
There's like
yeah.
really simple ways of doing this that if you think about it. Have you ever noticed like when presidents leave office, they go on like a book tour and they do a bunch of charity galas and they have a bunch of speaking engagements and autographed copies of their books sell for millions of dollars and their speaking fees are six figures and their charity galas are $50,000 a plate?
And Hunter Biden's paintings, for some reason, sell for $500,000 a pop.
Yeah, Hunter Biden is like, he's like a modern day Picasso. You know, that art is just like, it's practically priceless. If anything, they got it for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, do you honestly think that all of this is just 100% kosher and copacetic, or do you think there's a bit more going on here?
There could be. I just don't know like the specifics about it.
Do you think speaking for 30 minutes is worth $500,000?
Depending on who it is, probably.
Well, if it's Hillary Clinton, then yeah, of course it's worth it. Everyone wants to hear what she has to say.
I don't know. I mean, I've had events before where I've been there and like they've paid me $1 million for just 5 minutes. So.
Well, there you go.
They paid you what? $1 million Zimbabwe dollars?
No, just $1 million.
$1 million what?
Just $1 million.
$1 million. That's a wow.
Yeah, just $1 million.
Wow,
this must have been Robux.
Just $1 million.
Like your Facebook Farmville farm.
Like, there's no currency that could necessarily like quantify like the worth of it, but they just only picked a number, just $1 million.
Right, we don't need units here. It's $1 million. That's a big number.
Yeah, just $1 million.
That's a big number.
Yeah, they're like, what is like the biggest number we could think of, and they chose $1 million. They're like, you know what, we're gonna pay this guy $1 million.
I got paid $2 million. Fuck you.
Well, I got paid 80 trillion. Dun, dun, dun.
Actually, you know, I think that is honestly kind of the perspective that the Federal Reserve takes.
Of course.
We don't need units. Just print a billion of it, and it'll work out.
That'll be fine. That won't cause any problems. Just make more money.
Wasn't there this person on Twitter I saw where like this girl was like, "What, inflation is a white person concept? Just print more money."
That sounds like a Twitter take.
Like, why can't white people just print more money? Like, inflation is made up.
White people make more money.
I don't know. I feel like I've heard that take before on Twitter. I'm sure I can find it and maybe like I could put it up on screen when I do. Or if it's fake, if it's like actually like some like satirical shit, then like, oh well, then I guess I fell for it.
It's Twitter. Who knows? Like the
Yeah,
difference
it could
between
either be
reality and
satirical, like
fiction.
from a satirical account, or it could just be real.
The fact that you don't know anymore kind of supports one of my kookier hypotheses that the world is being engulfed in like hyper ironic abstractions where there is actually no substantive truth value behind everything you see, so you literally have to take it at face value no matter how absurd the statement is. There is a chance, a real statistical non-zero chance, that someone somewhere sincerely believes it.
Actually, here's an interesting question for you, Breaker. I was thinking about this the other day. So, horseshoe theory?
Yes.
Okay, so assuming that the political compass is not a 4-quadrant square, but it is in fact a triangle, how would the horseshoe theory work with a triangle? I feel like it wouldn't.
Well, that's kind of the point of the political trichotomy, is to nullify the horseshoe effect and make the political positions more concrete, and you can't round robin them. Because in the political quadrant with the square, going by that logic, you could make the arguments that at a certain point these round robin back around. Like if you become maximally anarcho-primitivist, like on the far left bottom, there's a way that can like round robin up into like a theocracy in like this tribal religious system. And you see how quick that can click over.
Yeah. I think that the political triangle it makes a lot more sense, and I think it prevents any sort of horseshoe shenanigans from happening. Because I'm not sure that the horseshoe hypothesis is actually something that applies to the real world. I think it's just a theory, not even a theory; it's a hypothesis.
I think it comes from centrists noticing over time that the Overton window kind of changes, but they stay more in the middle. So they're like, wait a minute, people who used to be left now sound like more right-wing and authoritarian, and people used to be right sound more libertarian. Like, what happened? Nothing. Well, what they think happened is not really what happened. It's just like the window of acceptable public political discourse just kind of changed, and they stayed centrists.
I think that what it could be is that the centrists, they look at the people that are outside of the Overton window, and they go, wow, the people on the left, they're more extreme than me. The people on the right, they're more extreme than me. Therefore, they must be the same, because they're both extreme.
But then people on the right seem less extreme than they used to 10, 20 years ago. So the people on the right that are considered right now are more like me, and I'm no longer a centrist. What the fuck happened? So to maintain me being a centrist, I have to go somewhere else and move with the Overton window, so it looks like as you move in that fourth dimensional quadrant, it looks like you're overtaking and shifting into a different position, just because people who you used to think were different than you because you were a centrist are now matching closer to you because the Overton window is pulling everybody over.
Okay, so speaking of takes that we've heard, so I was talking to a guy the other night, and he was saying that in the future there will be no more ethnicities, right? Like every human will be the same homogenized shade of light brown or something. That was his position. That we'll all become one truly unified, homogenous group of people. And I actually don't think that that's true, and I don't think that it's possible. So I think that a species that is large, like the human race is, there's 7 billion of us, we're massive. So a species that is large and is singular is actually at a low entropy position. And I think that what that does is it makes it makes that species speciate, because actually speciation is a way of increasing entropy for the original species. And so I think that it is impossible that as long as there's a bunch of humans around and there isn't some sort of mass extinction event that reduces our population down to like 8 million individuals or something, as long as we have a large population like we do, I think that speciation is inevitable, and I think that it's backwards to assume that humans will form just one ginormous single species. That seems to go against just the principles of entropy, and I think that that's dumb. That's my take on that.
I think that's a very reasonable take on that, because you also have to think, like, what caused the speciation events to begin with? It's because people lived in radically different environments. And, let's assume that people of like African ancestry spend like the next 10,000 years living in America, in various parts of America, and they kind of stay stable, reproducing in this specific area over that many generations. What's eventually going to happen is they're slowly going to look more and more like indigenous American people.
Well, so I want to point out that there are actually two different types of speciation, right? You have allopatric and sympatric speciation. So allopatric is the speciation that occurs due to like geographic distance. So, for instance, the reason why it is that white people have white skin and black people have black skin is because of allopatric speciation. They were separated by a continent, and they lived in totally different environments, right? That's allopatric speciation. However, there also exists something called sympatric speciation. And so that's where an organism, a species can exist in an environment, and they are not separated geographically, but they will still speciate. Because let's say that, it's like a species of, monkey or something. And they speciate so that one of the monkeys, like, stays in the trees and the other species, like, goes down onto the land. Well, they would be speciated. They no longer reproduce or whatever, but they're still in the same geographic area. This type of speciation, sympatric speciation, actually happens all the time. So I think that it is entirely feasible that human beings, like, we were largely allopatrically speciated, but as we make everything a global brave new world, I think that sympatric speciation might actually become a major thing. And again, I think that from the perspective of, like, entropy, I think this might be inevitable. Like, it's a consequence of thermodynamics.
I think probably class-related factors would have a lot to do with sympatric speciation, because, like you just mentioned, like the globo homo jet setter type people that can afford to fly around the world to different places and do that semi-regularly. There's much more people that aren't going to be doing that. So if that type of trend continues for tens of thousands of years, that's going to lead to a sympatric speciation of some kind. It might be very subtle, but it is going to happen.
Maybe this has already happened, and you know what? Maybe Klaus Schwab is actually like the pinnacle of this new speciation of humans. Like he's
the World Economic Forum.
Exactly. The new rulers of the state, the new species, the ones who really know what's best for you. Yeah, fuck yeah.
I'm not expecting you to talk. I'm expecting you to die. Dun, dun, dun.
He's just a James Bond villain.
There's no way that anyone would have intentionally done that. That has just to be like one of the most kookiest emergent occurrences ever. It's like the guy that's in charge of the fucking World Economic Forum looks, dresses, and sounds like a fucking James Bond villain. That you couldn't plan that. If you were to plan that, you wouldn't plan that. Yeah, let's make the leader of this thing that we want everyone to get on board with look like a freaking villain from a James Bond movie. This will totally work. No, it just shook out that way. It's like, oh, I guess he really does look like a James Bond villain. Fuck. We didn't think this through.
Dude,
that's how you know that the elites aren't actually in control.
Dude, what's hilarious is that you know that they have they have a PR team. They probably have a very extensive PR team, and yet they were like, yeah, this is the best we can do. Like he used to be more like a Darth Sidious, and now he just kind of looks like a James Bond villain. Like that, we did the best we could. He's evil. Sorry, we can't improve the image that much.
And the reason there's that picture of him wearing that weird suit that looks like something from like the fucking Star Wars Old Republic is because instead of like giving you a diploma or like one of those weird college hats, like when you graduate from that school, they give you that weird looking black suit to wear as the sign that you graduated.
So the other, I guess, I'll make the other biological point here now, just so I don't have to make it next week. So I had this idea, right? And maybe this is a bullshit idea. I don't know, but I was thinking, and if you look at the layers of complexity inside of the human brain, you have like a left and right hemisphere to the brain, and then you have like certain subregions, like the occipital lobe that handles certain things, and these different like areas of the brain, like the hypothalamus or whatever, the prefrontal cortex. They all kind of handle different operations, but they're all talking to one another, and that introduces kind of like a small net of like complexity. And then you have, I guess, like further subdivided regions in that. Eventually you get down to individual neurons. When it comes to individual neurons, you have like 100 billion neurons inside your head. God knows how many connections that they might be making, easily over 1 trillion. I'm not sure exactly how many orders of magnitude above that. I would guess like, I don't know, like 10, 100 trillion different connections between all the neurons. And then, you know, I was thinking about myelinated sheaths, right? Because when it comes to the axons that run through the brain, they're myelinated, right? And this can actually this can reduce their presence reduces the amount of electrical talk between different neurons, and then their absence can actually increase electrical talk between neurons. And I was thinking, like, holy shit, like the presence or absence of myelinated sheaths in the network adds another layer of complexity onto the already complex network, right? And then I was thinking, oh my god, there's like so many other ways that you could add layers upon layers upon layers of complexity onto this system, right? It's just networks upon networks upon networks. And ultimately, this seems like it's a combinatoric bomb, right? Where you just have like a million different ways to shuffle these different things around. However, it appears as though there's the neural network that exists inside the human brain is Darwinian, especially, let's say, in the developmental years. It's a highly Darwinian network where neurons actually compete against one another to form the network. So I guess the interesting thing about that is that Darwinian networks are able to explore a many-dimensional space relatively efficiently. And when I say dimensional, I don't mean spatial dimensional. I mean like, for instance, when you look at an image, there's a number to a pixel, right? So like a pixel can be like between like a 0 and a 100 or something in terms of, let's just say, brightness, if we're looking at a grayscale image and not even at like a color image. But if you're just looking at a grayscale image, between 0 and 100, you can be looking at, I mean, that is a dimension to the image. So if you're looking at a two-dimensional grayscale image, it's actually a three-dimensional image because you have to account for the sliding scale of the pixels, right? So there's actually a lot of ways that you can introduce dimensions that are not spatial dimensions, but they are still dimensions that can hold information. So I guess that my point with that is that I think that a Darwinian system is able to explore that incredibly large space very efficiently, and I think that's a thing. I don't know. I have to think more about this, but that's just a thought that I wanted to get out there into the ether, just for the fun of it, just for anyone who's listening to. Maybe I'm completely fucking stupid. I don't know. But maybe it's something to chew on. Maybe it's not. I just wanted to get that out there.
To put like a mythological perspective on this, like a more mythopoetic perspective on this, as I'm a lot to do. You remember a couple weeks ago now, I think it was, when we were doing that movie review of Spirited Away?
A great movie, yes.
And remember when the start of that movie, when they're driving up and there's all these like boundaries they're crossing, and as they're crossing each boundary, they transition more and more and more deeply into the other world until shit really pops off when the parents turn into pigs?
Yes.
There's always like these concentric shells. You could see like the remnants of it all around you if you pause. Like each scene is like a pause to look around and take in the scenery of what's happening. Like when she asks about the shrines and the Shinto arch next to the tree. I think nature is, like you said, is doing a similar thing where there's a constant, persistent background that through an evolutionary timescale, whatever organism is evolving is just taking in like all of these branching pathways, and sometimes there's like a momentary energy lull and a pausing moment until they have to move and transition into something else a bit more quickly, and then it stops again, and then a bit more quickly falling into another direction, it stops again, and this over evolutionary timescales, this eventually leads to things like us talking over screens and fiber optic cable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's we're all part of that system. Nature is a beast that you can never escape from because you are one of its claws.
Yep, there you go.
All right, you know what? Okay, now that is, unless you wanted to say something synthetic, I think that is a decent place to end it.
Hey, there you go. We are a part of nature. There you go.
We are a part of nature.
Yeah, either, you would sign a positive or negative or neutral connotation. That's up to you. All right. See you later, guys.
Yeah, all right. Okay, all right. Well, peace out, everyone.
Trip on a Lego on their way out. Thanks.
You son of a bitch.